Well, there's no doubt there's a physical short squeeze going on.
Yeah.
We can track the inventories at the LBMA. We track them on the CME. We can track them on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. So, for example, Shanghai today, they lost 10% of their inventories today. They're down to about 11 million ounces. So, I mean, that's almost zero for a country the size of China. So everywhere you look, you see issues. And to the point you're making about the CME and their technical issues, those kind of are suggesting to some of us who watch this that there's some shenanigans going on that are trying to get the banks off their short positions, because there's still a short position of, I think, roughly 500 million ounces of silver on COMEX. And I don't see the miners doing that. It's mostly banks. In fact, there was a delivery report today for the March contract, and the second largest person issuing the silver, physical silver, was the Bank of Nova Scotia. And they delivered about 5 million ounces. So those must have been 5 million ounces they were short. And I got to thinking, if you're short 5 million ounces and it was coming up on February 26th, isn't it wonderful that the silver price went from 120 down to 80? Mm-hmm. Think of the saving on 5 million ounces. I mean, you're talking a couple $100 million here. So that's serious stuff. And it's kind of surprising. Our banks have been pretty significant in these deliveries, by the way, whether it's BMO or Scotia. Sometimes RBC, not as much as the others, but they're in the game. And of course, it's all these banks that thought they could control gold and silver, that they've lost control of gold. And I'm pretty certain they've lost control of silver here. And we also have some developments that are just mind-boggling today that I think will dramatically change silver and gold.
According to billionaire investor Eric Sprott, gold and silver have entered a historic bull market, with silver potentially hitting $300 plus as physical short squeezes drain paper exchanges, India mandates precious metals ownership, Samsung secures silver supply chains, and junior miners remain massively undervalued, offering 20 to 30 times returns.
I listen to some people who I rely on and are smart. And I do my own work. Like, I've always believed in 15 to 1. Well, 15 to 1 says $300, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. So if somebody's saying 150, I can get it. And I can still think maybe 300. So that's your basis, really, for making the investment decision. And you're not paying for it. To think that you can buy it for, 5% of what its value would be at 300. You pay 5%. Wow, you're going to make 20 times on your money. That's a pretty good deal. You can't get that anywhere else, or hardly anywhere. You can get in the tech stock. Yes, you can, for sure. Some guy develops some new software or has a great chip or something. Yes, you can get that sort of thing. But this one, it goes across the board to all companies, right? All companies that have deposits. I don't think there's any developed country central bank buying gold, but there's lots of lesser known countries' central banks buying gold, a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So you can see that divergence all over the place. And of course, the Indian central bank is buying. The Chinese central bank was a big buyer. There's just a bifurcation here of interest. But, if you're the guy who's short the 500 million ounces, i.e. the developed country banks, you don't want to see silver going up. You don't want to see gold going up. So there's been that negative bias, but as I say, I think we are now overcoming that bias due to the rest of the world sort of coalescing around gold and silver. And it's when the Indian government came out and said, we're going to mandate that mutual funds and ETFs in India can now own up to 35% of their assets in gold and silver. And this pool of assets is $385 billion. Well, that's a large percentage of that's a little over $100 billion. And of course, the biggest owners of gold and silver in the world are the Indians. And then they made one other important comment. We are not going to price off of the LBMA or the COMEX. We don't want to, we're going to use prices established in India. And of course, who's the biggest winner in the world with the price of gold and silver going up is India, because they own about 40% of all the world's gold in my mind. So they, for a long, long time, encourage people to own gold and silver, and they do own lots of gold and silver. So you can imagine. By the way, the new regulation starts on April 1st, so we're not going to see the impact yet. Although certainly people like myself and your listeners will be vitally interested in knowing that as of April 1st they can buy those products. So we'll see what happens. Well, I've always thought that we should go back to 15-1, and our way in going to 15-1 will overshoot. So we might go to 10-1. And as you pointed out, the mining ratio is 8-1. The utilization of silver versus gold, maybe 10% of gold is utilized somewhere and 90% is just stuck in a vault. Whereas in the case of silver, I'm sure that 100% of all the mined output is used every year in whether solar panels or solid state batteries or you name it, healthcare, whatever, it's used. So it's a more useful commodity. Therefore, it might, in some sense, be more valuable than gold. Yeah. Gold's not valuable for the economy. Silver is vital. And of course, now they've made it a critical metal in the States. So I think the outlook and expectation is that silver will trade at 15-1. Samsung did a deal with Silver Storm Energy that they're going to buy all their silver output, okay, and then advance them like $5 million to get started. The other indication is for somehow Hecla and First Majestic both sold their silver well above the average spot price in the last quarter. I don't know how they did it yet, but it could be that some silver user just said, look, we'll pay you $10 extra as long as you commit to sell it to us. So I don't know the answer to that. Matter of fact, a sharp reporter like you will figure it out, okay, and tell me too what the answer is.
When silver hits these elevated price levels, the cutoff grades drop. But how are you valuing this asset in the ground today compared to the discount the broader equities market's currently applying?
I would look at it this way. Well, first of all, their reserve calculation went from 1.6 billion silver equivalent ounces, just announced about 10 days ago, to 2.6 billion ounces. And it didn't even include some of the high-grade drilling that they'd done in 2025, serious high-grade silver drilling. So I look at 26 billion or 2.6 billion equivalent ounces, and I believe that's more than Hecla has. I believe it's more than First Majestic has. I think there's only one silver producer, it's a Mexican company, that has more than they do, and it's Fresnillo. And of course, Fresnillo hardly ever trades. I think there's a very small percentage of their stock that trades. So I think Hycroft has more product in the ground than anybody else, okay? And you know what? We're not selling it at cheap prices. We'll be selling it at 150 and 200 when we get there. So this is a very valuable commodity. The market hasn't yet learned to pay for gold and silver in the ground. Sure. I think they're coming around here. You know, you can tell by the trade that's going on that anytime somebody comes out with a resource now, and it's a good resource, the market understands it and reacts to it, which it didn't do till about 6 months ago. But you definitely see it now. In fact, one of the other things that we're seeing is we are seeing the small cap mining companies that, and I'm using the TSX TSX exchange, that gold is starting to outperform the other ETFs like GDX and GDXJ. Just the smaller little companies, the penny horribles. You know what the most important thing in mining is? And of course, they always think management. I said, no, it's the price of the product is the most important thing. Just think of what silver going to 80 or 90 bucks has done versus the 20 we were looking at 3 years ago. I mean, it's everything. And by the way, most managements have done nothing in this market. Who's been out there buying things? Well, I think what you have to do, and I'm going to credit a guy named Don Durrett, who I love his MO. He says, look, silver's going to 150. What is this going to be worth at 150? And of course, the number is always like 10 times higher than where it is. And I believe that. I mean, I believe it will be 150. I wouldn't even rule out it's going to be way beyond 150 because of all the things that are going on. Imagine if India actually starts buying this stuff. It'll be crazy. So, you put 150 on some guy producing a million ounces, all of a sudden he's making $150 million of profit. And you put a multiple on that now. Well, you have to tax it, of course. But anyway, the upside is it's magnificent.
It's wild.
There's many, many companies that could go up 10, 15, 20, 40 times with the endowment that they have with price increases. I mean, I actually do ask the question very often when I'm involved in underwriting, are there any non-gold funds that are participating?
Yeah.
And so far, it's been pretty de minimis. I don't think that it's hit yet. And of course, I always sort of jokingly say, well, maybe the pension fund managers won't figure it out, but the computers will. When they say, oh, the best performing group this month, oh, that was gold. Yeah. Best performing group the next month, gold. Next month. Best group for the year, gold. Well, when are you going to put it together? The world's buying gold. The world is buying gold. How you wouldn't know that? You're not reading things if you don't know that the world's buying gold.
Yeah.
So why would you not buy gold? So in fact, I heard that, not that I really like Jane Street being in SLV, but they've got might own 10% of SLV.
Huge position.
Yeah. And you can see when the gold stock started rallying at about 11 o'clock yesterday morning, when gold and silver were still down, but the gold stock started rallying. Like some people are people are coming into this market for sure in big size. In fact, I heard about a manager in England who ran $1 billion fund. He just received another $1 billion. And I think, okay, bring it on. Like $1 billion. You try to put $1 billion into some of these stocks, particularly the junior or intermediate size guys. I mean, there's going to be some serious run up going on here. I'm thinking that the seniors are proving they don't understand metal markets. They might understand mining, but it's not the mining that's important. Most of these guys, their production never goes up anyway. It goes down all the time. Barrick goes down almost every year. Newmont goes down almost every year. So how are you going to cut it? Well, you maybe should get your price forecast right and go and buy something while it's cheap. I think when I was on last time, I mentioned Free Gold Ventures with their 30 million ounces of gold in Alaska, that you can go to a Tim Hortons and drive to the property. It's just perfect.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the coffee's still warm, by the way. 30 million ounces, and I think we're valuing it at maybe $20 an ounce in the ground, US, 20. The price is $5,100. Why would we value it at 20? I think that's all going to change. So let's hope that with time, the price of silver keeps going up. You keep finding more silver. It just gets more valuable every day. Maybe if the market starts looking at how significant the deposit, maybe Highcroft will take over somebody.
Yeah.
Because your market cap's already pushing $4 billion. You got a little swag going on here. You got $200 million of cash. Well, there's still lots of value. Like as I mentioned before, Don Durrett says, well, this is going to be a 30 bagger. It's going to be a 20 bagger. Well, wouldn't you like one of those things?
Yeah.
Like, come on, 20, 30 bagger. Can you get that one through your mind? Like, where do you get opportunities like this? Nowhere else. The only place you get a deal like that, it's a metal where the price has exploded, where it looks like it can sustain itself. And we're having a reality change, right? Where we're sort of getting rid of the paper and going with the real. And there's only so many ways of doing that. And gold and silver will be number 1 and 2 or 2 and 1.